back in the scale shop. It's Saturday night, but this isn't a Saturday night video. Those haven't been popular lately. The last one I got didn't get a whole lot of views, so I'm just going to stick with build specific videos for the time being. So looking at the Gasser build again. Still waiting on parts. I've about decided the front suspension. I'm going to go back to the radius arm, and I'm going to have to make some radius arms. And just the way it's set up with the front leaf springs, having dual leaves, really doesn't work with the wheelbase that I think it needs to look right. That type of gasser, they never really had dual leaves like that. That was typically your big cars, your 50 Tri-5 Chevys, and your all the weird gasser stuff you see now, all the unique wagons and things people do, and it's always big cars with that leaf setup. But all the stuff like this, they always tend to have a radius arm set up. So we're gonna look some more at the suspension here in a little bit. You can see I've got a big surprise right here. I finally got my RC4 drive scale V8, and I've got this new, I don't know how you say that, Inglese. I should have looked that up before I did a video, but then it's the new 8-port and fuel injection looking intake for the scale V8, and right out of the box it looks gigantic. I'm kind of worried. Some of the pictures I've seen it in a trail finder too, like on RC4 drive site, it looks really big, but I think for this type of build, I think it's going to be perfect, because the gasser needs something gigantic on the engine, like the dummy engine I have sitting up there. It's got a giant blower on it, so I think it's gonna work good. So I'm gonna get all this stuff torn open here, and we'll start looking at putting it together. So let's look at this thing first. Typical RC4 drive fashion, it is all beautifully CNC'd out of aluminum. That thing just looks awesome. I don't forget my stickers. I don't ever really use these stickers, but I've got a drawer full of stickers, and I always save them. I got some of them on my toolboxes in the scale shop. So it's nice and solid aluminum, like you'd expect. Let me get it closer. We've got little screen filters on top. One of those is a little discolored. There's just different colored. Tiny scale hardware holding all the stacks together. Now this is a replica of a real piece you can buy. I watched some videos on YouTube about them, and never heard anybody pronounce it. It's kind of weird. This is the entire intake manifold. Bolts directly to the block. It's even got fake ports that line up with the ports on the engine, I'm sure. It's really cool. It's got a fair amount of weight to it, but I guess this is the back. We've got our spot for the distributor and a slot, I guess, I don't know, motor wires maybe. It's been a while since I've had an RC4 drive V8, so I'll have to do some exploring. And it's got the spot for the water neck, and the holes are threaded, so we can bolt the water neck on. That was the problem I had. They have a version 1 and a version 2 of the original of the V8, and the original version 1 model did not have threads on that, and the hole pattern was different. So when they released the water neck, it wouldn't fit the engine you already had, pretty much. But we don't have to worry about that, because the new one is threaded. I'm pretty sure I still have that water neck. We'll have to find out. I've still got some of the stuff for that engine. I think I've got the distributor still. I know I have the radiator, but we'll find all that here in a little bit. This thing is pretty though. Good Lord, it's pretty. And it does, you can't take it apart. So that was a little tricky. I had to drill the 4 holes out just a little bit. They were just, I mean, I could get the tip of the bolt in, but they wouldn't go all the way through. Luckily I found some precision drill bits for the Dremel, and it just needed to clean it out a little bit to get the bolt in. there's not a lot of space here. This is from Locked Up RC, and it's a little bit smaller headed wrench than the adapter that RC4 Drive sends you. I don't know how you'd really get that down in there. It's snug because the way this rises up here, it's very tight getting these in. This one, I don't know how I'm going to get because it's completely underneath the back of the intake. I started it with the, well, I thought I'd started it. It's still loose. I'm probably going to have to shorten that bolt so I don't have to spend all day trying to tighten it with some pliers. But I'm not going to put it in all the way right now because I am planning on disassembling the motor and sandblasting it and painting the block and doing some other stuff with it. So for right now, it's testing purposes only. We're going to leave that one just sitting in there. I will come back and get it though. I'm not going to leave a bolt loose. I'm not like that. As I mentioned, this was the version 2 of the V8. It's got the threaded holes here for the water. Alright guys, I got the water neck on. I couldn't show you the film for that because there was a lot of profanity. But luckily, I saved the tiny little bolts that went to it and the adapter because I don't have any nut drivers that size, and I had to use the tiny 0.5 adapter that they provided with that. So that was a miracle. So what do you think? That thing, it doesn't look as out of proportion. I think the reason it looked funny on the website to me was because it was on a Hilux, and it's just, you know, you're not going to see that kind of intake on the Hilux. This piece is made for hot rods and rat rods and custom stuff. It's made for what we're doing here. I'm trying to get this distributor out of the package. I have no idea how this attaches. I really hope I don't have to take the intake back off to put it on. Never messed with one of these. Looks weird. So I'm thinking I've got to take it back off. So you can see that hole back there, if I can get this thing to focus right. Really need a different kind of camera for this detail stuff. That whole the bottom of it's half covered with the housing. So I don't want this to stick down in there too far. So I don't know if that's going to work with it or not. Doesn't look like it's going to. Alright guys, the distributor will not fit. Now on the stock intake, it doesn't have a place for it, but it screws into one of the holes for a bolt. So it mounts like that and helps hold the intake on. This intake, it has a hole next to the mounting hole, but it's still I don't know if they're going to come out with a different version or something, I'm guessing. It fits down in there. The shaft of the distributor fits down in that hole, but it still hits the intake. So I don't know how to remedy that short of making something over where the wires go and putting the distributor more centered back here. But still maybe kind of tight. So I don't know. We'll cross that bridge later once we start trying to do more detail stuff to it. For now, I'm just going to try to get the rest of it mocked up. I want to get it kind of setting in the car and get a look at an idea of what it's going to look like with that body. It's got the right size and the proportions. I think it's going to be awesome with that body, that chopped roof, and all that mess sticking up in front of the window. I think that's going to be pretty cool. One thing I'm kind of excited about, I may weather the stock intake and just have it laying around the workbench in the scale garage. I'll take the air cleaner off and the fake carburetor spacer off, and it'll be something fun for us to mess around with. Okay, so I'm getting ready to mock it up. I've been thinking about the suspension still, the stance mainly with the changing the front end, and I need to lower the back a little bit more. So I found these. I think maybe these are off of I think they're off of those Lesu G5 axles. They're a spacer for the 4-link mounts, and they have the same bolt spread as what's on the axle. So I'm going to use them as a lowering block since the axle's flipped. I've already got one in there. It's just in between the leaf pack and the axle, so that's going to push the axle down. The frame is upside down right now, so that's along the lines of what I'm thinking. I'm going to throw one on the other side, and we'll start setting this whole thing up. I think that puts the tires just perfectly aligned with the wheel arch cutouts on the body. It doesn't have a whole lot of suspension travel, but it's pretty much going to be a drag car, so it doesn't really need it. I'm still going to have to cut the body for the tires, but still not quite ready to do that yet. We're a long way from even mounting the body. I like the way the motor sits up high like that. That's kind of the Gasser style. It tilts a little bit, or could tilt a little more towards the rear. That's kind of how they always did. It looked like somebody just kind of shoehorned a giant engine in the front of one of those and threw some axles under it and went racing. I used the firewall out of the green body. It's a little bit off, but I'm going to make a new one, but I'm not ready for that either because I can't put the magnets on the body until, you know, we're just painted and done. They probably work with paint on them, but I'm running low on rare earth magnets anyway right now. They're actually a little too far forward right now. I'm probably going to trim the front of the frame down as well. That's a little better. We don't need that much that much frame rail sticking out in front. As far as the grill goes, I'm not sure what I want to do. A lot of these cars didn't have grills. They had a little tiny fuel tank up in the front between the frame rails. They didn't run radiators. You know, it was just strictly quarter mile at a time. There was no no real anything up front. The one I'm getting my inspiration from mainly is that the Quit Your Bitchin' 5-window gasser that Vegas Rat Rods has. That one, I just love the proportions of it, and the fact that it's, you know, drivable and everything is just awesome. That's kind of another reason why I went ahead and lowered the rear, and I've gone back to the radius arm front end because it just makes more sense. You know, I have way too much frame out front, as you can see, just to have those leaf springs like they are on the axle now. And yeah, I think I'm gonna go the other route. Okay, so I did a little more body work. It's getting really smooth. I'm gonna have to hit it with some more primer. Still a little wet, and I've got some chunks of primer that didn't want to come off. And I've got to come back and clean out the door lines and stuff like that. But talking about this intake, I forget that stay. I've got some folks online I'm chatting with that are having some of the similar issues I'm having about that mounting hole you can't get to, and I think I figured out how to do that. I'm going to show you that. But also the other holes, having to drill them out. It's almost like they drilled it one size small to thread it, but that hole doesn't need to be threaded. So you know, that is I use these little tiny drill bits that I had. It's 5/64. If you've got one of these and you have that problem, the 5/64 drill bit, it'll run right through that soft aluminum. Perfect size, not too big, not too small. It'll still bolt right on perfectly. So not really that big of a deal. It's kind of an odd size, tiny drill bit, but I don't know. I mean, I had that set with the Dremel. I don't have any that size in my normal set, but not a super huge deal. It wasn't like it was misaligned or something. They were just slightly bigger. As for the distributor, I don't know. They're probably going to come out with one that'll work with this since it does have the hole for it. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead. I'm pretty sure I'm just going to drop the bottom half of the motor, and I'm going to take that rear stack off, and then I'll have perfect access to the rear bolt on the intake. I was thinking about I was going to leave it loose and I was going to go ahead and sandblast the engine, but I'm not sure yet. I need to wait. I keep trying to get ahead of myself. I need to wait until I have not lost any of these screws. I have a better idea of what I'm going to do, what I'm going to paint it. I have no clue right now what color. Plus painting this, you've got a lot of tiny threaded holes. and I was thinking about painting the block like an enamel color so it was real smooth and shiny, but I'm afraid that will be that'll fill in my threaded holes. So gotta play it safe. I don't want to mess up anything before I get the chance to actually use it. It's not super hard to take the block apart. The worst part is the 4 screws on the front for the timing chain cover. Then you've got your 4 on the sides. Motor mounts are going to be easy to make. I just need some steel weld to the frame, and drilling holes will be a little tricky, but shouldn't be too big of a pain. I'm trying to think if I have any of the original motor mounts left for this. I might could use it as a template for the holes to mount it. So, not a big deal. I mean, it's not. That's part of this kind of stuff. That screw, they couldn't make that intake any different to make it where you could do that screw from the top. And it's not like it's impossible. There's just, you gotta think outside the box a little bit. It's just like working on a real car. You gotta do one thing and you have to do 15 other things to get to that one thing. Boom, perfect. See, they left these where we can get to them on the inside. Make sure you can see that. So I'm going to pull those 2 out. I've already had one side off to check the distributor fit. And I noticed these screws, they're flush mount and they have a little bit of Loctite on them, which is nice from the factory. It's not something you see often. Alright. One stack off. So now we have perfect access. If I can find that. Go ahead and tighten this bolt down. Alright, so let's pull one of these guys off. See what we have on the inside. So I'm curious about these little filters on here, if they can come off, or now I just need little tennis balls to put in it. Take those off with little tennis balls while it's sitting. Alright. So, I'm not sure if you can even see that. Inside there, it looks like that's just glued on or pressed in. Huh. It's hollow all the way through. The other part, hollow all the way down as well. No real detail inside of it though, so it doesn't, it doesn't have the airflow sensor or anything across it. But anyway, I just wanted to see for the sake of exploring here. But yeah, I'm still not sure what color this car is going to end up, so I don't know what to paint the engine yet. All I know is it's going to be sparkly. I want lots of metal flake. I would like to do some kind of graphic or design in the paint. No patina. I want this to be shiny. That's why I'm spending so much time on body work. I didn't show it on camera, but I spent at least 30 minutes sanding this with about I think a 120 grit, kind of block sanding down the all the primer, because it had a ton of coats of heavy primer on it. And then after that I came back with a 320 wet sand, and to smooth it back down because it was still pretty coarse. And my hands are freezing because my hot water takes forever to get hot in the kitchen, but it real smooth enough. The filling I did, it still needs a little bit of fine sanding around the edges on the gap on the back. Don't you fall on the floor. But around the windshield and stuff, it filled in those little potholes in the printing perfectly, so no big issue with that. Once we get the primer on it, you won't even be able to see it. I think the next coat, I've been using an actual automotive primer, real high build primer, so I think I'm going to use a Tamiya primer. I've got an ultra fine, Tamiya surface primer, and it sprays differently, and it's very fine, like it says, and they won't build up as much. So I'm not trying to fill in imperfections on the body. Now I'm just trying to get a good even coat to paint with. Did I already lose one of these things? Nope, there it is, hiding behind the tire. So Yeah, still on the frame, I'm not sure yet. I haven't welded anything between the sides. I think that's going to help me when I do the motor mounts. I can just mark one side where it needs to be, weld my mount on, clamp them together, mirror the other side, and weld it on. And it's just going to bolt with the 2 holes, the factory motor mount. They're pretty well in the middle, a little to the front. And it is going to set with a little bit of a tilt. These gassers, they always tilted to the back like that. Like they just took an engine transmission and shoved it in. And, you know, it wasn't a real precise looking thing, but it's part of the look. They set up so high, and you need the angle of the engine down so that your pinion angles and stuff aren't bad. And it's pretty cool. I really don't want to put those other 4 in right now, because like I said, I'm going to take that apart. I have no idea what engine and stuff I'm going to put in this. It needs to be mildly fast because it is a drag car. I highly doubt I can get it to pop wheelies, but yeah, that would be a good problem to accidentally have. But let's talk about the front suspension again. So I've stripped all the leaf springs off the axle. I've flipped my steering arm to the top side of the knuckles on the axle, just for ground clearance. And I don't like what I did before, where I had everything kind of just pancaked around the axle. I had the shock on this side, leaf spring on that side, and then radius arms. I think I want to make an actual leaf spring or shackle mount on the axle itself, as opposed to using the bolt holes that we used before. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, this is one of the axles, and I just had a bolt going all the way through these holes, and I had the shock on the front side with a long bolt, and then a leaf spring with a shackle on both sides here, and like that, and then the radius arm screwed on to the remaining threads. It would have worked, but it was a little bit long, and I don't know yet my design I'm going to have for the radius arms I'm going to make. That's the only thing I'm not looking forward to, is trying to figure out how to make a radius arm, make 2 that are identical, and then a mount off of the frame to mount them to. That's going to be a challenge. And the leaf spring mount. Now that probably won't be too hard. I just need to weld a piece across the axle, or across the bottom of the frame, and have it hang down enough to bolt the top center of the leaf spring to. So I think now the stance and stuff is going to work better. I think if I do the shackles like I'm thinking, it should be the top of the leaf spring should be pretty parallel to the bottom of the frame. So I can just weld a flat piece across the bottom, bolt my leaf pack to it, and then bolt these to the axle on each end, and boom, that should be done. But it's going to be all up to the radius arms to keep everything centered and straight. What's next? Let me get the body mock back up now it's dry. Alright, so I'm thinking that's about where the axle is going to end up. That wheelbase looks good. I'll have to wait until I figure out what kind of grill I want to put on it. I really want something like a 32 roadster grill, or maybe even like a 34 grill. But finding something the right scale is going to be a challenge. I haven't seen anything made yet like that, so my body's sitting a little far back. But anyways, I hope it's got some information for you about this intake. It's not hard to fix. Those screws holes, you just got to drill them out a little bit. Again, that's a 5/64 bit. I wouldn't do any bigger, and any smaller is not going to do anything. That was the perfect fit. It was nice and snug. I didn't have to force it in. It slid right in and doesn't wobble. And that getting that one bolt on, that's a little bit of a pain, but like I said, you're going to have your V8 apart most likely anyway to put the engine in it. So what's the big deal? Take one of those off, put the bolt in, put it back together. No biggie. But I'm going to wrap this one up, guys. I appreciate you watching. And yeah, that intake is perfect. I just can't get over how awesome that looks with that body. It's exactly what I pictured with that chop and that intake sticking up so high. But anyways, I appreciate you watching. Be sure to check me out on Instagram and on Facebook. And I'll see y'all in the next video.